Hi, everyone. I am State Representative Derek Slapp. Thank you for joining the November edition of Derek and the District. And we have a great program for you, really. Two segments. First, we're going to start off with seniors and the Seniors Job Bank. So if you are a senior, or you know or love a senior who might be looking for employment, this is really an important service that's provided here in our town, and we're going to talk with two of the leaders of the Seniors Job Bank. Then we'll take a quick break, and when we're back, we'll actually kind of go on the other end of the age spectrum. We're going to talk about teens and vaping. It is a real epidemic in our community and in our schools. What can we do together to help stem this tide? So we'll talk about that in about 15 minutes, but first, jobs and seniors, and we welcome Sheila Diamond, who is the Executive Director of our Seniors Job Banks, and Bernie Weiss, who is the Vice President of the Seniors Job Bank. Thank you both for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. What an important thing that you do. And for those who maybe don't know about it or have heard of it but don't know all about it, can you start off by telling us what is the Seniors Job Bank?
In the smallest of nutshells, the Seniors Job Bank is a nonprofit, volunteer-driven community organization that for about 38 years has been matching people over 50, men and women over 50, with companies and households and other kinds of employers who need work done.
Okay.
And we have in our database about, 600 or so of what we call service providers, all over 50, representing around 150 or so very different and discrete skills and talents and abilities. Blue collar, white collar. If you need somebody to fix a stuck window, we have that. You need a little help with your taxes, we have that.
And what about green collar? Yes?
Green collars?
I couldn't
Only
resist. Isn't this
Bernie.
a fantastic jacket?
Only Bernie has the green collar.
And he's got the
And I've
green
got the
collar.
green collar.
And, you're not a professional golfer.
No, if I were, as I've said on other occasions when I wear this coat, if I were a golfer, I'd be committing fraud.
That's right. Well, maybe I'll try it on after, if you don't mind, because that's the
No
only
problem.
time I'll ever be able to wear the green jacket.
So that's what the Seniors Job Bank does. We are a referral agency.
Yeah.
We have the database of people who are looking for work, and we have the community, the business community, and the householders who need work done.
Okay, so
And we put them together.
why is this an important or needed service for seniors?
Where do I begin? People, as they get older, handle their lives in different ways. Some people, and I'm sure you've met the kinds of folks who've said, when I retire, I'm just going to sit down and use the rocking chair. And there are other people, particularly in our current environment, where people are healthier, longer, living longer, who want to keep active. And we provide a facility to enable that. They can do things that they have been doing all their lives and are good at, or in many cases, they do things that they couldn't get paid for in their first lives,
Right.
but they know how to do, and now they can make a business out of it or get a job doing it. So it provides a kind of emotional freedom that they previously didn't have, and they make money.
Yeah, and money. I mean, obviously, that's an important thing, especially when in your generation, there were still some folks who had pensions, right? In my generation, even fewer, and in subsequent generations, pensions are going to be hard to come by. So people don't have the security in retirement that they had before, and maybe need some more supplemental earnings. Right?
There's no question about that. Some of our people do it because they need or want the money, and some of our people do it because they just like to be busy doing what they like to do.
Right.
And I just want to add something about age discrimination. I mean, we do have laws against age discrimination, but it still exists. And so we really help promote, the hiring of people over the age of 50. And we've had service providers, that's what we call our job seekers. They've actually said to us they were not able to find a job until they came to the Seniors Job Bank. And we had one in particular that we've helped her find at least 2 jobs. So I think that's an important part of what we do as well.
Yeah. Now, if somebody is a service provider, like how you phrase that, that's
Right.
wonderful. Do they pay you a fee, or how does that work?
Well, one of the best things about the way this works is that when we make a referral, neither the service provider nor the potential employer, the client we call it,
Okay.
pays for the referral. The only money that changes hands is when a service provider signs up with us, we do a background check and we charge for that.
Sure.
And it's a pass-through, we don't make money on that.
Right,
But,
it's a nominal kind of fee.
but
yeah.
other than that background check fee, what we do is completely free, both to the job seeker and to the employer.
Wow.
It's a good deal.
It's a great deal. You can't get better than free.
Right,
Yeah.
but you know what, I want to add that we interview every service provider before we include them in our database. So we interview everybody, so all those 600 people have been interviewed, and we have volunteers who are in each of the towns, and I guess the 7 towns, we focus on 7 towns primarily, which is West Hartford, Avon,
Okay.
Bloomfield, Canton, Farmington, Newington. But we do service the whole greater Hartford area. We don't say no to people who live in the other towns. And
Right.
so they're all interviewed, and we do a security background check at the time of the interview before, we start giving their name out.
Sure.
And once we make a referral, technically how it works is that a client, a business or a nonprofit agency or a government agency or a household will call us and say, I have this work that needs to be done.
Yep.
Then Sheila goes into the database and will come up with maybe a half a dozen names of people qualified to do that job. And we give contact information to the client, who then contacts the potential employee. And they negotiate the terms of the deal, the specifics of the work to be done, the compensation,
Right.
the hours, the deliverables.
Yep.
Once we make the referral, we're out of it.
Okay.
We put them together and they run with it.
Gotcha. So if you're a senior who's watching this right now, what are some things that they should be thinking about maybe before they contact you in terms of, what type of employment is most appropriate or hours? Are there certain things that you encourage seniors to think about?
Yeah, what they want to do and what they're good at doing.
Okay.
And what their
haven't-
skills are, for sure.
You've had people come
Yeah.
in who wanted to do a particular job and you've determined that they really weren't qualified for it. Hasn't that
No,
happened?
absolutely. I mean, people have to be realistic about what they can do and what the marketplace is really demanding. And so we encourage people to certainly, improve their computer skills. And if they're a bookkeeper, they have to know QuickBooks. But, we try to work with the person and place them in an appropriate, placement.
To use just a rough example, if you've got a fellow who was practicing law for 40 years, but he's always dreamed of being a carpenter,
Right.
and he walks through our doors and we discover he really doesn't know how to be a carpenter,
Right.
we'll direct him elsewhere.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would be me if I came to you and I always wanted to fiddle, but I don't
Right.
know how to play the fiddle. But so it's you can reinvent yourself, but within certain parameters.
But
right?
it is
Yeah.
it's market driven. It's what
Sure.
people are willing to buy,
Sure.
the services that people are willing to buy.
But I did want to add something. We're called the Seniors Job Bank, and that's because we help promote the hiring of people over 50. But on the flip side of that, anyone of any age can hire our people, and that's
Very
where we
important.
really help the community.
Sure.
Because we get some unusual requests, and oftentimes someone will start out by calling social services, and they'll say, I have this huge fish tank and I'm disabled and I can't clean it anymore, and where do I find somebody to help me do that? And so,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll create a job request and a job description, and I'll send it out to all of our service providers, and we find people who will clean a fish tank, who will help someone get a wheelchair down a staircase, to get their loved one to dialysis or wherever they need to be. So, I feel like we're sort of a safety net for the community as well, because with 600 people in our database, we can find people to do almost anything.
Right. And do you have a goal as to how many people you want in your database, or how many employers? I mean, is there a growth plan?
Well, I don't know. I think right now we're happy to just do a really good job with what we've got,
Sure.
because we do have limited staff.
Right.
I'm a part-time executive director, and we have an office person who helps. But last year we got over 1,300 requests, and we placed about 45 people, and that includes businesses and residential.
Okay.
We placed 45 people in jobs with nonprofits and businesses. So
Wow. Wonderful.
I think for this year, we're just trying, as I said, do a really good job at what we're doing.
Yeah.
Speaking of numbers, Sheila keeps very good records about how many people we've served and how many businesses and how many households. But we can't know as much as we'd like to know. And this is actually a good story. Sometimes one of our service providers will go and do a job for a household, and it becomes regularly employed by that homeowner to mow the grass every week instead of just one time. And eventually even builds a little business, becomes a landscaper, and we don't know about it.
Right.
We know about the first encounter, but we don't know about the continuing. So that's good. We've been the source of the development of some small businesses, but we can't even tell you which ones they are.
Gotcha. Well, that's, you're so successful. There's ripples that you send out into the community, and so that's a great thing.
But there are the regular 9-to-5 jobs too, the bookkeepers and the computer people and office workers and salespeople, and
So
they're more
let's make
traditional work.
Absolutely, and I mean, and we need it all. So let's make sure that people get the contact information. If you are watching this on TV or on social media, grab a pen. Here's Bernie's going to detail it all, right? Website, phone number, and
All
what
right.
people need, the information in order to get a hold of these guys.
If you want to call us on the phone, it's 860-521-3210. 860-521-3210. Info@sjbct.org.
Great. Say that one more time.
Info.
That's our email.
That's the email. Info@sjbct.org.
Okay.
And the web is www.sjbct.org.
One more thing I did want to touch on real quick was that starting January 1, so just in a couple months from now, Connecticut will become the 5th state in the country to ban the pay history question. And what that means is that if you're an employer and you're interviewing a job candidate, you can no longer ask, how much do you currently make, or how much did you make in your previous job? And the reason I mention that now, with this segment with the Seniors Job Bank, is we work with the AARP to help pass this law last year. This disproportionately really helps women. It's going to help close the gender wage gap because women, what happens is they disproportionately carry kind of a salary anchor, right, from one job to the next to the next. So this is going to help break that cycle. But over the course of a career, women on average in Connecticut lose more than $500,000. So if you think now you're at the end of your career and you've lost a lot of money, you and your family, for savings. But the other thing that it does too, this is what the AARP told us, is that for seniors who are looking to maybe downshift their career or go from, change jobs, the salary history question can disqualify them sometimes because they'll give a higher salary and HR may kind of bounce them out, right, prematurely. Is that something you hear about, or what do you think generally about how this is going to affect seniors?
Well, I think it may have the opposite effect to what you just described, in the sense that people who are beyond 50 were working at wages that were lower than what's being paid today simply because of the inflation in the money value. So if a person retired making, let's say, $40,000 a year for a job that today might pay $50,000,
Right.
if that over 50 individual applies for a job and says, my last salary was $40,000, that's going to give the employer an opportunity to underpay. So your legislation would cure that.
Right. That's the idea, is that you really price the position, and it hopefully will really end the practice of lowballing.
Oh, it's a great idea.
So.
And
Well,
it would
yeah.
help, as I said, it would help the older people who worked in an age when the money was worth less than it is now.
Right.
Well, I was going to say, when I was in human resources, we did exactly what you said. If you looked at somebody and you said, well, they were earning, $200,000, they're not going to be happy with $100,000, so you would automatically eliminate that candidate. And it just seems like a much fairer system, that this is the job and this is what it's worth, regardless of what the person, was paid previously. So, that's really wonderful that you've sponsored that legislation, and so thank you.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things I'm very pleased with is that we were able to, not initially, but we were really able to form a great bipartisan coalition. It passed the House 142-4, and it passed the Senate 35-1. So
Wow.
we had the CBAA, we had the business community, we had labor, we had all the stakeholders together. So and that's kind of the best way, oftentimes, I think, to get things done.
Yeah, excellent.
Good. So, well, hey, look, thank you very much for coming in, spending your time with me. Sheila Diamond, and you are the executive director.
Yes, I am.
Right. And Bernie Weiss, thank you. You are the vice president.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And again, if you want more information about it, you can contact me or the Seniors Job Bank right away. The phone number, one last time?
Phone number is 860-521-3210.
All right. Get it now while it lasts. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. State Representative Derek Slapp, representing parts of Avon, Farmington, and of course, West Hartford. And this next topic is so important, and I think it's something that's just really come onto the scene in the last year or two. We're talking about vaping, the e-cigarettes. It is an epidemic in our schools and in our community, and by no means are we saying that singularly in West Hartford. I mean, this is something that's going on across the country, but I'm very grateful to have Dan Zatoun, who is the principal at Hall High School, here to kind of set the stage for us and tell us what he's seen and the proactive steps that they're taking in our high schools, and then Bright Johnson, who is with the American Cancer Society. We're going to talk about some of the statistics and what we can do, both as parents, as educators, and then potentially as lawmakers as well. But thank you, both of you, for taking a few minutes and joining me. So, Dan, why don't we start with you and set the stage or the scene for us here in terms of what do you see in the high schools right now going on with the vaping and e-cigarettes?
Well, we started seeing, and smoking in high schools and smoking in the boys' room, has been going on for years, and we saw a huge decrease, I think, in the 90s and early 2000s, and then technology came and created these e-cigarettes, and it's just really created an ability for students to kind of to get access to nicotine through these devices. I happened to bring one, and you can see this is a popular one that's called a Juul, and they're very small, they're very slick. They get charged through these little pieces, and they look very much like thumb drives.
Right, I would have thought it was a thumb drive.
Yes.
I mean, I'd never seen one up close.
Yes, and so they're easy to conceal. They to hide them, and then they use this device has these Juul pods, which has the oils in them that contain nicotine. And once again, there's a lot of students who they don't realize it. They think it's just water vapor and it's harmless and it doesn't cause. But each of these devices do contain nicotine and
now,
other
can you
types
hold
of
that
things.
up too,
Sure.
and so we can get a camera shot of it and describe how much nicotine that little pod has. That's really amazing.
Yeah, this
fact.
is equivalent to about 1 pack of cigarettes. And so depending on how much they, kind of smoke, they can go through it, relatively quickly. You have that component to it. So once again, you'll see these Juul pods sometimes common there. So there's a lot of times the parents will be like, yeah, I saw this, I didn't know what it was, but that's the mechanism for there. And then once again, the Juuls and then the chargers that are there. So. When we first saw, I think last year was really our peak where we saw where, a lot of times we get reports that there was a lot of kids who were vaping in the bathroom. And so, initially we worked through, once again, through pretty much the solution for most things we think is through education. And so we tried educating our students, we tried educating our parents. We had our SRO do a presentation with the PTO to work with the parents at our beginning of the year class meetings this year. We really focused on that and showed them some videos about the harms of vaping and e-cigarettes. And so really kind of continue pushing that piece of education on there. As if there's students who do get caught with it, we work on a tobacco cessation program that we have, and we've expanded that to talk about the dangers of e-cigarettes. And so that piece, and so we've seen, I don't want to say by any means it's eliminated, but we've definitely seen a decrease in there. So we're hopeful that we're trending in the right direction at this point. But once again, it's the same issue. We talked to our colleagues, Julio, the principal at Conard, and I. We talked to our colleagues in other areas and stuff, and they're all seeing the same type of issue. So yeah, it is definitely beyond just a West Hartford issue. It really is a state and national issue.
Absolutely. And Bright, why don't we bring you into the conversation here? We're talking about how it's, of course, not just a West Hartford issue. Can you put it in perspective for us? What are we seeing across the state?
We're seeing e-cigarette use double among high school students year to year. The FDA just last month did declare it to be an epidemic at this point. And that's largely because e-cigarettes are so new that public policy hasn't caught up to them yet. E-cigarettes are largely unregulated. There's nothing federally or statewide relating to ingredient control. Many states have yet to even come up with laws to include e-cigarettes in existing youth smoking provisions. Connecticut did it a few years ago, but even still, their use has exploded in part to a lot of misinformation that's out there. The kids think that they're safe. They are being marketed directly to kids, even though the industry would argue strenuously that they're not. But the flavor options that are available, cotton candy, mango, all sorts of flavors that are attractive to kids. These products are made available to kids, and they're accessible.
Now, so people who, who think, well, okay, e-cigarettes, it's a lot safer than smoking a cigarette because there's no tar, right? And so is it safe to say it is safer than cigarettes? However, right, I think you have a good analogy.
Well, yeah, it is clear that they potentially are safer than cigarettes, but I think that we could all agree that it is safer to drive into a wall while wearing a seatbelt than it is to just drive into the wall without wearing a seatbelt. But I think the better option, the best option would be maybe to not drive into the wall at all.
Sure. And these are highly addictive, right? I think that's the key. Is that, so we're getting a whole generation of a new generation getting addicted to nicotine.
Yes, and part of the problem is that since these are being marketed as tools to help people quit smoking, which, by the way, I should point out that the FDA has not approved a single one of them for that purpose. But they're being marketed in many cases as an alternative or as a way to quit. The problem, though, is that for young people, they will start using these products and then they will move on to cigarettes, but they don't necessarily stop using these products. So in some cases, you're getting dual use. They're smoking cigarettes and they're getting nicotine from these vape products as well, which is certainly not a good thing. And the bigger issue, I think, is that not all e-cigarettes are created equally. You can vape heroin, you can vape marijuana, you can vape alcohol, and there's really no way to tell
because it just heats up the liquid.
Right,
I guess, right?
Because they don't put off the odor that smoking combustible marijuana does or smoking combustible tobacco products does. So that makes it even more difficult to spot and more difficult to be able to regulate and control because they're not all the same thing.
Sure. So Dan, what message would you have for parents who are watching this who are concerned? Certainly you're doing a lot of great proactive measures in our high school at Hall, but what are some things that parents can do as well?
I think probably the two biggest things they can do is one, be willing to have those conversations with their children, and talk to them and walk with them. I think, sometimes parents are, hesitant to have conversations because they're like, well, I smoked cigarettes when I was a teenager, and so I feel like I have, but explain to them why, now that they're older, they have that perspective and that, why they shouldn't do that, and to have those conversations about the education and, and do research themselves and kind of, look to see, because a lot of times they'll say, well, my son told me it was better than smoking, and so they just kind of accept that. But when you look at some of the sources that they're getting it from, it's kind of questionable. And then the second part is just, just to be aware. Sometimes, as parents, you have your instincts and something seems odd or something seems funny, and be aware. A lot of times, the students, what they'll do is when they get these, they'll take their birthday money and then they'll go to Walmart and get a Visa gift card, and then they'll turn around and go on Amazon and purchase one of these. And so if all of a sudden you see there's some packages or different things, I think it's okay as a parent to question your children and to see what's going on. Sometimes they're like, well, it's their room, I don't want to invade, I don't want to, and if they're kind of doing well and stuff, then you kind of monitor. I think every parent has to make those own decisions, but not feel afraid to be able to engage into their child's development.
Right, and you raise a great point, and I want to get to you, Bright, too, in terms of access, of how are youth getting these. So in Connecticut, there is an age limit, 18, and you can't go up to a machine or something, let's say, that's unsupervised. They have to be behind the counter, that type of thing. So, is the age limit effective? And I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to endorse certain legislation or not. Bright, I know, will go full on about how we need to raise the age for all tobacco products to 21, as other states have done. In general, though, as an educator in high school, do you see that when age limits are raised, let's say to 21, I mean, has that had an impact? Is it harder to get, and therefore you see it less in the high schools? Is that a logic that makes sense or no?
No, I mean, and I think a lot of legislation they do are good. I think the bigger issue is really just the accessibility online.
Okay.
I mean, the students can go on various, and it says, I agree that I'm 18 years old. They can click yes. There's no checks. There's no ways to make sure, to guarantee that they are. And now they got packages coming right to their door, so they don't even have to have that awkward experience of going to that, the local gas station and see if that person will say yes and sell it to them or not.
Right.
And doing that. So the ability to access these things online is, I think, really allowed them to have almost unfettered access to these the different devices.
Gotcha. Bright, what can we do?
Well, there's a number of things. First and foremost, I would agree. I think that the accessibility online is a serious issue, and that's more of a federal issue. And the FDA does have authority over vaping products and electronic cigarettes, and I hope they use their authority quickly and come up with some steps to make it more difficult for kids to be able to access these products online. In the meantime, though, that is a large segment of the population getting them, but there are other ways. And a big way of getting products for minors is through friends. And this is why I think the concept of raising the sale age of tobacco products to 21 is an emerging concept that is gaining popularity. 6 states have passed it. Over 370 municipalities across the country have passed it.
Hartford
and
being
Hartford,
just one, yeah.
Hartford just passed it
Right.
just this week, or a few weeks ago in Hartford. And that is, I think, potentially very, very helpful because, again, over 90% of adult tobacco users start their addiction before they turn the age of 18. There are 56,000 kids alive in Connecticut today that are going to die prematurely because of tobacco use. And anything that we can do that is going to make it more difficult for them to get a hold of those products, the better we're going to be. We all know, we all remember high school, and you see it every day. How many 18-year-old seniors that have friends that are 14, 15, 16-year-olds? That's where these kids are getting a lot of these products from their friends. As you know, from being 15, it's a heck of a lot more difficult to pass yourself off as a 21-year-old than it is to pass yourself off as an 18-year-old. And if we can do something to reduce access to schools, even by a little, I think it is worth exploring and worth doing.
There you go. Yeah, and it is skyrocketing, right? The use. I mean, you're saying you're seeing a dip now because you've had a couple years in it, but across the state overall, right, it's been increasing.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think, like you said, there was I think last year when it hit its peak, it was very much, and not to minimize behaviors, I think there was a segment of the student population that it was very much like Pokemon Go a few years ago, and then the fidget spinners.
Right.
There was a little bit of that experimentation. What is all of this? And so I think a certain group said, okay, I'm done with this, or as they got educated and said, oh wait, there is nicotine in here. Oh, it is addictive, and I think it did that. But I still think there is a segment of the population. Especially in the student population, that we're still working toward, once again, educating them and having them understand the harmful effects of it.
Yeah, and Dan, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I mean, having a high schooler myself, I know what an impressionable age it is and how important it is to have educators who, I mean, it's not only on your radar, but you are fully dealing with it and doing what you can. So thank you.
You're welcome.
For that. Did you you wanted to jump in, I know.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that while we have made great strides in curbing tobacco use in this state does kill more people each year than alcohol, AIDS, car crashes, illegal drugs, accidents, murders, and suicides combined. 4,900 people die in this state from tobacco use every year. That's 13 a day. At a cost of about just over $2 billion to our state's economy each and every year. That's about, if you exclude the revenue that comes in from tobacco sales and their master settlement dollars, that's about $173,000 every hour of every day that we are losing because of tobacco use in this state. And we are spending zero. Other than some enforcement efforts, we are spending zero on tobacco control in Connecticut. And Tobacco 21 is an emerging concept and a good idea, but it is not a standalone. It is most successful when it is part of a broader tobacco control program, and we need that in Connecticut.
Right, thank you. It's a lot of numbers, but the bottom line is it is a big problem. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take parents. It's going to take educators. It's going to take advocates like Bright. And it's going to take lawmakers and probably some legislation as well. So we'll be beginning the new legislative session in January, and I will be ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work on this problem. If you have any comments or feedback you want to give me, please, I'd be grateful for it. It's Derek, derek.slap@cga.ct.gov. My cell phone number is 860-519-9672. Give me a call too. I'm always eager to hear from you. Thanks again, and I will see you next month on another edition of Derek and the District.